Good afternoon, and welcome to the CEO Speaker Series. I am Jennifer Troyer, the Dean of the Belk College of Business at UNC Charlotte. I'd like to welcome all of you who are joining us today for this signature event. Most of all, a special shout out to our students who are attending today. If you'd like to share information about this event on social media, the hashtag is hashtag CEO Speaker, and the handle is @Belk College. The CEO Speaker Series provides an opportunity for Belk College students to hear from distinguished business leaders. Over our history, the Belk College is proud to have dozens of C-suite alumni in Charlotte and around the world who are driving business. As we celebrate this 50th anniversary of the establishment of the Belk College of Business and the MBA, I can't think of a more appropriate guest for us than Scott Case, who is a distinguished MBA alum. So Scott is the Chief Information Officer and a member of the executive leadership team for the newly formed Truist Financial Corporation. Scott has 25 years of experience in financial services, leading transformational change and delivering innovative solutions. He is also a 2000 graduate of our MBA program with a focus in the area of finance. So Truist really brands itself as the nation's premier financial services company. They serve approximately 12 million households, and they're the newest Fortune 500 company to locate in Charlotte. They're a major employer in our region with more than 2,000 employees, typically located in Uptown Charlotte, and soon to be located in Uptown Charlotte again when the pandemic is over. So Scott assumed his current role less than a year ago, so in December 2019, with the merger of equals between BB&T and SunTrust. So he is responsible for an organizational unit that provides the company's overall technology, operations, and information-related services. And he's played an integral role in the merger process. So a little about the CEO Speaker Series. So over the past 5 years, the CEO Speaker Series, we've been honored to have 2 other leaders from Truist come speak to our students, our alumni, and our friends. So first, we had Kelly King, who is currently CEO and chairman of Truist. He joined us when he was still leading as CEO of BB&T. And then we had Belk College alumnus Dante Wilson, who is the Chief Digital and Client Experience Officer for Truist. He's also a member of the executive leadership team, like Scott. He joined us in January 2020 for this series. So Scott, welcome to the CEO Speaker Series. I'll be asking you questions, many of which came from our students. And then a little later, I'll introduce you to several guests who will have questions of their own.
Thanks, Dr. Troyer. It's great to be here. By the way, congratulations on being named Dean of the School of Business this year. So
thank you. Great. Thank you. I'm really excited to be able to lead the college. We've got a lot of great things going on, and I think that it's an exciting time to be here in Charlotte and to be leading the Belk College.
So. Definitely. But thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to start us off with some questions about Truist and your role at Truist. So many people here today may not realize that Truist was formed so recently, and that merger is the largest financial services merger in over a decade. So can you talk to us a little bit about your role in this large and complex merger process?
Yeah, sure. Well, for starters, you mentioned it, but Truist was created less than a year ago, so we're coming up on our first year birthday, I guess. But really, it was the creation of Truist was really born out of two existing banks that had been in existence for over 100 years. So BB&T, headquartered in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, SunTrust, headquartered in Atlanta. Brought together under this merger, legally created last year in December of 2019. So really exciting. And by the way, the scope and the reach of Truist is incredible when you put the two companies together. We do have close to 13 million clients We have over 400 billion in assets under management, over 300 billion in loans, 300 billion in deposits, and growing. So it's an exciting time. We have 60,000 employees, which we call teammates. So close to 60,000 of us, a lot of us in Charlotte and many other places around our footprint. My role, Dr. Troyer, is really the CIO. It's multiple things, primarily responsibility for executing the merger. Although we created a new company legally last December, we still have a lot of work ahead of us, right? You have to take systems and technology and data that exist across both companies and put it together in a target state environment to serve our clients. And that's in process as we speak. Happy to talk about that as we go. And then my other role really in the merger is not just the merger, it's running the IT systems day to day, really consulting with our business partners on the future of banking and aligning our technical capabilities to execute on that vision. So it's a great role. Happy to talk as much as you want about what I brought with me from my time at the Belk College business. And again, happy to be here.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we'll be asking you about all that as we go here, Scott. So in terms of the pandemic, I mean, can you just talk a little bit about how your role has changed since March, if at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly, the whole world's changed, right? So I'll talk about it from the CIO's perspective and really give you a glimpse into how Truist is thinking about it. When back in April, when really the situation kind of got amplified and COVID was becoming the global scale and the impact that it is today, technology teams in my organization, we really pivoted from being day-to-day software engineers and infrastructure and cybersecurity leaders. We pivoted into really becoming what I call a logistics shop. We had to focus on supply chain as an example. I mean, the reality for us is we took about 40,000 of our teammates and mobilized them to go work remotely in about 3 weeks. So the intensity around that was pretty significant. And we also have several vendors and partners outside of the United States, largely in India, working across 6 or 7 different cities in that country who also had to mobilize. So it literally was a dedicated focus on where do we get the computer parts from and how do we align them, build them, and get them to our vendors or teammates who need to execute. So it was a huge undertaking. And then maybe one other glimpse into what pivoted, what changed is we became really intensely focused on delivering software capabilities to our clients and our teammates so that we could function and deliver financial services oriented to the COVID pandemic, especially small businesses. We had to figure out how to get government allocated dollars in the form of business loans to our business clients quickly and efficiently, and then service them. So we became that conduit to help get those dollars out there in the marketplace. And the software capabilities to do that didn't necessarily exist before.
Right.
So,
Yeah, got it. So, I've always been really intrigued with Truist's purpose. So, what I read is that Truist's purpose is to inspire and build better lives and communities. And Dante talked a little bit about this when he came to speak to the students last year, but or I guess about a year ago. I guess it was earlier this spring. So can you just talk to me about what the role of the Chief Information Officer is in that purpose?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's multiple aspects to it. Again, I think our purpose, inspiring and building better lives and communities, it's such a great anchor for all of us inside of Truist. So I always call it our compass heading. If you're in the middle of a project or a pandemic or a merger and you're not exactly sure what to do next, take the compass heading off of that purpose and it usually points you in the right direction almost always. But like, in terms of what's the CIO role in delivering that purpose, I'd say, again, the merger itself will help us deliver on that purpose in many ways. I mean, again, it will help us touch and reach 13 million clients. And one of our roles is to execute that merger really well. One of the other promises of the merger, and it's aligned to our purpose, is something we call T3, and it's a pretty simple formula, but it really stands for technology plus touch equals trust. And we like to talk about that one of the roles of the CIO is to lead the merger and deliver on that promise of putting technology in the hands of our clients and teammates. We believe that that purpose will be really best served and will be served into the future with technology enablement. So again, the CIO role, the role that I get to play every day, is really front and center on the delivery of that purpose into our clients' lives every single day.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, so I'm going to pivot a little bit and ask you some questions about you and a little bit more personal about you and your journey. So can you just talk to us about your path to the role of CIO, and really kind of what would you say most contributed to you getting to where you are now?
Yeah, so in terms of the path, I always tell this part of my story because I think it's I think it demonstrates that learning agility is part of the toolkit throughout your career and your life. And when I started my my journey academically, especially, it was not in the IT discipline. I didn't get an undergrad degree in computer science or information systems or cybersecurity. I'm not even sure there was a degree in cybersecurity when I was really going through it specifically. I started my career off, in my academic focus was more in management science, actually marketing. You mentioned my MBA had a finance concentration. But that to me demonstrates that you can start there. It gave me an opportunity when I started my career to learn the business side of financial services. That happened to be the field that I entered into, and I had roles in my first 5 to 6 years of my career that were really they were roles that ranged from sales to service to back office operations. I would say that one of the learnings I took away from that, as I look back on it, hindsight being 2020, is that I was essentially doing my own management training program without it being officially called a management training program. But the great thing is that I learned the business. I learned how to interact with clients. I learned the art and science of sales. And then a little bit into my career, 5 or 6 years in, actually it was as I was coming towards the end of my MBA program here at UNCC, I had the opportunity to take a risk and take a chance and enter a technology organization. And that organization, they asked me to join IT without an IT degree because I had used the systems. I knew how they applied to the business. I knew how they applied to the clients. And they were ripping all the systems out in that particular area. And so it allowed me to learn the IT and really focus on my expertise, which was, what does it mean to the client and how does the business actually operate? So it was a great marriage early on in my career of a passion for financial services and the client with something new, which was technology. And I think, just to sum that up, that the learning I took away from that is, exploration and risk taking, and not being afraid to maybe fall down and skin your knee from time to time. It is so important in what I call that learning agility and having a growth mindset. So that in my first 5 to 10 years of my career really served me well. Even though I'm not sure I was super intentional about it, but looking back on it now, that's the advice I'd give: is be intentional about that learning agility and growth. So.
Oh, that's great advice. So what's the favorite thing? What's your favorite thing about your job?
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects to the role that I absolutely love. I'd say, maybe top two or three. One of them is definitely impact. I mean, that's a word that I use a lot. I'd like to um, show up every day and have an impact. And when you can have an impact on a company that is a purpose-led company, and you can have an impact on the lives of 13 million clients and 60,000 teammates, that's a pretty special opportunity. And candidly, it's quite humbling most days to think about that scale and that impact of what you do and what you say and how you lead. So that to me just energizes me. And then I'd say on a real day-to-day basis, it's the interaction and with my team. The aspect of coaching and developing and leading towards that vision of being a purpose-led company is just something that really speaks to me. Those are probably my two favorite things. Like when I go home at night and I say, boy, that was a good day, I can usually point to I had an impact, and almost always I had some sort of engagement with a teammate and maybe helped that individual. So those are things that really energize me.
I have to say it's sort of, when you say that impact and then really, engagement that causes learning. I mean, this is what faculty love about their jobs. And this is what, we love about being in academia. Okay, so you're on the board for a nonprofit where their focus is really on ending generational poverty. And I was just curious. So why is this important to you, and what can you tell us about that sort of engagement?
Yeah, so the nonprofit you're mentioning is called Tech Bridge. Would encourage you all to go look up Tech Bridge. It's a pretty neat story. I had the opportunity to join the board of Tech Bridge a few years ago. The mission and the vision around Tech Bridge really is breaking that generational cycle of poverty. And by the way, we do it in a few ways, right? We certainly provide funding and grants and services, and at least the initial vision of Tech Bridge really was focused on bringing tech services to other nonprofits. So it's a nonprofit serving other nonprofits in that regard. And the impact is huge. Like you're able to deliver. It could be a CRM platform or even just basic database capabilities to a nonprofit, which allows them to possibly do things like have better inventory management or know what clients they're actually serving day to day and how to better serve them. And nonprofits, don't always have unlimited dollars to spend on IT services. So through services and grants and funding, we've been able to reach that. And then, we've also recently introduced a technology career program where we're working with communities in different cities around the Southeast, primarily for now, bringing students into a pretty short but intense program to certify them in technical skills and then put them in the workforce. So, it sounds pretty obvious, but one of the key ways to break that cycle of generational poverty is to have a job, right? Is to have skill sets and have a career path that allow you to work your way out of that level of poverty. So really proud to be on the board of Tech Bridge. And again, for me personally, it's aligned very much to having a purposeful life, whether it's through a company like Truist or your own personal purpose, which for me is at the core of it's really, it's really trying to apply my leadership skills to help others. I mean, that's essentially how I would sum that up. So it's a great vehicle. It's a great organization. I'm proud to be on.
Very, very interesting. Sounds very interesting. So let me ask you about success, the notion of success. So there are many dimensions of success. So how do you think about success?
Yeah, I guess I'd start by I compartmentalize it a little bit. I definitely don't define success purely through the Truist lens. To be candid, I talk probably first and foremost about on a personal level. Having balance in your life with your family, as an example, and making sure that you spend the right amount of time with your kids or with your loved ones or your friends, and that kind of personal balance. If I had to put it in business terms, if I had a scorecard, I think about that on my scorecard quite often, and whether I'm green, yellow, or red. and
Right.
by the way, if you're doing it right, those around you should be nudging you to let you know when you're not green. So I think for me, success starts and ends with that personal aspect of it. And I'm sure my family would tell you that I'm still trying to sustain a green level on my personal balance. So, but it is important to me, and I think that should be at the core of defining success. On a business level, there are dozens and dozens of metrics we look at, whether they're risk related or financial related or schedule related around things like our merger. Are you operating on time? But I think if I took a step back and I went up to 50,000 feet and looked down on all of it, I'd say that to me, success is all about trying to calibrate the day to day between it all. It's family, it's work, it's it could be your community, right? And
Mhm.
how do you put your head on the pillow every night and think about that was a productive day, and it's aligned to your purpose. So I think if you can do those two things and you stay somewhere in the yellow to green range most days, I think you're doing pretty good. So
So I absolutely agree. I think that that sort of insight is something that's come with maturity for me. I want to sort of take you back to your, 20 years ago to your MBA self. What sort of advice would you have given that guy?
boy, yeah, there's lots of stuff we could have talked about knowing what I know now. Uh, I think I would think first and foremost, I always say, life is not linear. So that's probably would have been a good reminder for somebody going through that. What I mean by that is you're going to experience a lot of ups and downs. You're going to experience potentially a lot, setbacks, as well as a lot of exciting, things that go into the success column, right? But I think that would probably be the core message. The other message I'd say, whether you're in an MBA program or an undergrad program, I don't. It probably applies to both. Is you're never done learning and growing, and I think exploring that and also exploring why you're doing what you're doing is really good advice for because I think probably 20 years ago for me it was I might have had that checklist mentality more times than not. It was I'm going to go get my MBA. That's on the list. By the way, I got reminded all the time, Dr. Troyer, I still have a checklist every day. I'm still a
I do
checklist
too.
kind of
Yeah.
guy. But I think it's just good advice, right? It's not always about the checklist. It's not always about completing the next task. It's about, are you thinking about what the big picture is and why you're doing what you're doing and what does it mean for your personal journey and your personal purpose? It's about exploring that and being okay with making some mistakes along the way. Um, but yeah, so I guess, like I said, I could have a real long and healthy chat with my 20 years ago self, but those are some things that would certainly feature.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Scott. Okay, so for our next question, I have a special guest. So please welcome Gary Kohut, the program director for our MBA program at the Belk College of Business. So he's a longtime faculty member as well. He was certainly teaching in the MBA probably back when you were going through it. Not that you had him, but he's of that vintage, I will say. So let me turn it over to you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Dean Troyer. And hi, Scott.
Hi, Gary.
I'd like to begin by saying on behalf of our faculty and our 4,200 MBA alums, how thrilled we are to have you here today, especially during this very big year. As you know, this is the 20th anniversary of your MBA graduation from UNC Charlotte, but it's also our golden anniversary, 50 years having the MBA. In 1970, we launched the first graduate program for working business professionals in the region, and that has grown into the program we call today the MBA. So I'd like to transition a bit to questions, but I'm going to ask you to get on the Wayback Machine, if you don't mind. Okay? I want you to go back 20 years as a soon-to-be MBA graduate. Take a look at the image that we're going to be projecting, and you'll see that to the right is that very handsome gentleman, I might point out. This is courtesy of another class of 2000 MBA alum, Paul Ferraro. So that brings back, I'm sure, some pretty interesting and vibrant memories. So let me move to my first question. How did the Belk College MBA prepare you for the success that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, well, Gary, first of all, I'm going to have to just make a note of Mr. Ferrara when I do talk to him next. Is in big trouble for digging up that picture. But no, but and Paul and I did go through the MBA program together. We were also co-workers at the same time, struggling through the ups and downs, by the way, of working full time and staying committed to an MBA program. So it's good to see the picture and brings back some memories. But yeah, so your question, Gary, is, what prepared me, right? What were the things that had been done and said to prepare me for a soon-to-be graduate out of MBA program? There are a few things that come to mind. In fact, another one of your faculty, I think, Dr. Russell, who I think is still there and plugging away. I think Dr. Russell was an adjunct professor at the time, so I've got to give him some props here. We're in a finance classroom, and I'm all ready for a finance discussion, and he talked about relationships. Mm-hmm. And I said, why are we talking about relationships? We're in a finance conversation. And the reality is, and I'll never forget it, he said relationships matter. And that was something I attribute to him. And that was certainly something that featured in the MBA program, whether it was group work or small teams, we would work on problems together. And then, the reality is, it might sound cliche, but that is how the real world works, right? That is, you don't come out of the MBA program and go sit and on your own and work through problems most of the time. I'd say another thing to reflect on, I remember Dr. Ella Bell. Dr. Bell was another great advocate, organizational behavior class. I never forget that. And it was really learning about culture and what is culture and how you break that down into your belief systems and value systems. So I guess what you're hearing from me is I took away more than I realized at the time about beliefs and values and how to treat other people and how to build relationships and how to collaborate, as much, maybe even a little bit more than I took away how to do a Monte Carlo simulation for my finance discussion. And those skill sets are still serving me really, really well to this day, and almost always win out over the technical skills, almost always in the jobs that I've had over the last several years.
Very nice, very, very nice. As you know, in our audience, we have a lot of our MBAs, and they'll still reap the benefits of having Dr. Russell in class. The only thing, as he has mentioned to us, is that if you take him for more than one class, he has to come up with some different jokes, and perhaps you remember some of them fondly. All right.
I could probably, I'm not going to try to tell any, but I do remember a couple. So.
Very nice. Let me move to my next question, and it's one that I think a lot of individuals ask of themselves. What are 3 things you know now that you wish you knew then at graduation?
Yeah, I think, there's probably more than 3, but I think if I were to anchor on a few, one would be, again, life isn't linear and there will be a lot of ups and downs. Taking risk is part of life. Exploring your passions, having a connection to a personal purpose. Those are 2 or 3 things that I always go back to. I probably knew them somewhat intuitively at the time, but I think really reflecting on it now, 20 years later, those are touch points in my philosophy that get me through a lot of challenges. It's, you know, and maybe the other thing, Gary, would be the last thing I'd say is ask for help. Be humble enough to ask for help and reach out and you know, rely on those around you. That's really about vulnerability, candidly. And I'll tell you that is almost that is probably one of the top leadership traits that I think has also helped me persevere through a lot of challenges. I don't know everything, and there's no way I can know everything. So making sure you build strong teams and have talented folks around you and be willing to ask for help, it is absolutely a fundamental trait that I probably wish, maybe I wish I knew more of that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but I certainly have, I'd say I've learned it over the last 20.
Very nice, very nice. I could see your enthusiasm in your responses, your desire to help individuals to excel, and I want you to know how much we appreciate that. So let me conclude by saying thank you, Scott. We very much appreciate your being here, and we will look forward to a very forward-looking, engaging relationship with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Count on it. Thank you, Gary. It's good to see you.
Same
Thanks,
here.
Gary. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate it. So I've got a few more questions about Truist and the industry before I turn it over to the students, Scott.
Great.
So, so I wanted to talk about diversity and what sort of work Truist is doing to try to, you know, increase the diversity, or maybe they're working on inclusion or they're working on equity issues. You know, both within the company and then sort of the kinds of things that you might be doing in the community as well.
Yeah, well, look, this year in particular has certainly underscored the reason why this conversation is not just important, but it's required. And I'd say, you know, I'm proud at Truist how we've certainly leaned into this subject and topic. And, you know, Dr. Troyer, to your point, it's diversity, it's equity, it's inclusion. I think, you know, equity is a relatively maybe new component to that conversation formally, but informally, it's been there for a long time. I mean, I'll speak about it. You know, certainly Truist is doing a lot for the community, right? There have been a lot of large grants we've provided through funding mechanisms to our community in different ways, whether it's investment in new technology companies, whether it's community grants. We are putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and putting the dollars out there to put them to work to foster an environment and foster opportunities where you know, having an inclusive mindset and having a focus on different diverse groups and organizations can use that capital and put it to work, right? So corporately, we're doing a lot of great things and putting a lot of money to work out there, which is good. I'd say inside of technology, which is the organization I you know, run inside of Truist, you know, we have thousands and thousands of teammates and third parties that operate under our organization. We this year stood up a diversity, equity, and inclusion council. We took a pulse survey about a year ago, actually, before we even created Truist. So we were still two legacy or heritage banks, SunTrust and BB&T. And we did a survey of what's on your mind around, at the time we were focused on the words diversity and inclusion. And you know, through this council, we have a lot of things that are underway. One of them is career development. So how do I, as a diverse teammate, succeed? How do I have sponsorship to succeed? Who's going to advocate for me? Do I have all the skill sets and tools in my toolkit to get there? Another thing which we're doing across the whole company, which really has been humbling, educational, and rewarding all at the same time, is we have these things called days of understanding. And days of understanding is where we will form pretty small groups. So, maybe a couple dozen perhaps is probably kind of typical size. And that's really not so important. But inside of these forums, we have an opportunity to tackle issues that are related around usually current events.
Mhm.
So, it could be racial related. It could be, systemic racial injustice. It could be topics that are hard to tackle, right? They're sensitive. You don't tend to talk about these things day to day in your work setting. A lot of folks will show up and work and go home, and you've missed an opportunity. So, really, really proud of how Truist has leaned into these conversations and in a real authentic and caring way. And it's really about learning, right? It's about breaking down assumptions and bias, and getting past that, hopefully in a dialogue, and ultimately trying to put solutions in place that create a culture and an environment that is fair, and that values an inclusive world, right? And by the way, there's great business reasons to do it, even if you didn't believe it philosophically, which isn't how we're trying to approach it. We do believe it philosophically. It's a core part of our value system. But there are some well-documented business reasons to create diverse teams. They outperform non-diverse teams. So we have a lot of reasons to do it, but at the core of it, it goes back to our purpose and our mission and our values as a company. So I'm proud of what we're doing, and I'd say look for us to continue to lead in this space. And happy to take questions on it if anybody has a question.
That's really exciting, Scott. I mean, I think, those sorts of, I'm just very intrigued by the conversations that you're having around these issues. I think that's it's a difficult thing for people to do. I mean, I think that we're not, and I'm sort of thinking of myself as sort of a white person, right? I'm not used to having those sorts of conversations, but I think they're really essential for us to make progress.
I agree, and I think we need to have them on a national level too. But maybe we'll get to that at some point.
Maybe we'll get to that at some point. Maybe, we'll see. Okay, so, and then I wanted to just sort of ask a technology related question. So, we've got, artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, big data, cloud strategies, security, cybersecurity you talked about. So, can you just talk a little bit about tech strategy at Truist, and I mean, maybe what sort of might make you kind of what you're thinking about, and then what might be unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're in my sweet spot here, right? This is my wheelhouse, Dr. Troyer. So hopefully we have time to get through this. I'll keep it brief. The capabilities you just mentioned, so artificial intelligence, or broadly data and analytics and advanced analytics, cybersecurity, the movement towards cloud architecture and cloud computing. Even if you don't really know anything about those topics deeply, what you should take away from them, and they apply directly to our technology strategy into the future of banking and how we want to compete in that space. They are essentially ingredients in what I call the digital recipe. And if you think about, well, what does that mean? Even if you take it out of a banking construct and you think about your day-to-day interactions, and you pull out this device that we used to call a phone, but now it's a mobile device, and the phone's just an app on your mobile device. What's going on behind the scenes, and how that actually works, and how it moves data from point A to point B, and how does it know the next thing to offer you without you telling it? It's a machine, right? So, and then how should we be thinking about our data, and how do we keep it private? How do you keep it secured? So you just touched on some of the absolute core tenets and components of our tech strategy. I would say that one of the differentiators I'd say for Truist versus maybe others that I'd say we compete with is our focus within the technology strategy on the client, right? So we put our clients right in the middle of our thinking And we like to use the term design thinking, which is an industry term, but we have a applied science around design thinking at Truist. Our clients will tell us what they need, what they want, and how they want to interact with a bank or within the financial services ecosystem. They will tell us. So we have an approach that puts them in the middle of it. We design for our clients, and then it allows me and my technology engineering teams to partner with business folks that own the business and interact with the clients on a day-to-day basis. We can then go build it, construct it, and we can do it pretty quickly now, right? So we're not waiting weeks and months to deliver software. We can do it in days and weeks. So really what you're touching on, Dr. Troy, are the tools in our toolkit, those ingredients in that recipe that all are prominent inside of our tech toolkit. But the real secret sauce for us is our focus, our dedication to our clients, and how we operate inside Truist between a business executive and a technology engineer. The two of them are at the table together designing for that client experience. And we've had some really great success at that this year, and we're not even a year old, right? So pretty exciting stuff. And like you said, you can see the passion around it. We could go deep just on artificial intelligence if you want, but I don't think we probably have time for that today.
Probably not. If we have a little time at the end, we'll circle back. That's exciting. Okay, I do want you to get a chance to meet a few of our students, and allow them to ask questions. So these were questions that were submitted by Belk College students. So Ravi, could you get us started?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ravi Sharma, and I'm a part-time student in the MBA program and work full-time in the energy industry. So Scott, we'd like to know, how have you used failure to drive success in your career?
Yeah. Hey, Ravi, first of all, good to see you, and thanks for being here and representing your classmates, and good luck with the program. And if you need any moral support, you can call me. I kind of, when people ask me that question, because I have been asked something like that in the past, I joke around and say I'm an expert. I have my PhD in failure. But I actually try to turn the question around a little bit and say, well, not turn it around, but more address it in the sense of I don't really think about it as failure so much. I think about it as mini experiments along my life. You have to take risk and you have to try things out. And if you go into doing anything new, whether it's a new hobby or learning how to play golf or go to an MBA program or make a decision in the work environment, if you go in being afraid to mess it up, right, afraid to make a mistake, I think it's the wrong mindset. So along the way in my career, I've had plenty of opportunities to reflect and say, boy, hindsight 2020, I might have done that differently. And that's, by the way, on a personal level as well as a professional level. So I think it just, Ravi, it speaks to that growth mindset. If you're going to grow, you have to be okay with taking some risk, and you have to be okay with not batting 1,000. You're not going to get it right every time. And so that's shaped my philosophy over my course of my career and my life. So hopefully that gives you some perspective. But like I said, I've become an expert at it. So
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Mr. Case. I'm Taylor Cox. I am a senior from Apex in the Business Honors Program. I'm double majoring in business analytics and management information systems, and I'm also in our early entry graduate program in the data science and business analytics. So my question for you is, who has helped you along the way to success?
Yeah, hey Taylor, and congrats. That's a great combination of skills that you're building, by the way. And maybe that's one of those hindsight 2020 things for me. If that program had existed, 20, 25 years ago, that's actually pretty cool stuff. But when I think about who's helped me along the way, there's a multitude of names and experiences that I could recall. But I think maybe I'd frame it this way. I like to use the phrase my personal board of directors. If you think about who you put around you as an individual, who is that, and what do they tell you? What kind of guidance do they provide? I'd say that one of the permanent members of my board of directors on my personal board of directors is my family. Whether it was my parents or my children, my wife. It's this family ecosystem of folks who are always there to try to keep me within the guardrails and balanced. And by the way, they'll tell you when you're out of balance, right? So I think thinking about it as a board of directors, there's been a lot of colleagues. There have been a lot of educators along the way. In fact, I mentioned a couple of them from the UNCC School of Business earlier. So and I think some of it's seasonal, right? I mean, different seasons in your life require different members on your personal board of directors. So my advice would be, maybe it's not always one person. Maybe it's this mindset of surround yourselves with people who are going to tell you the truth. Surround yourself with people who will kind of keep you grounded and keep you humble, and you'll be just fine. And probably 20 years from now, you'll have 50 of those people you could think of. But I'd frame it more on the approach than probably naming folks other than my family.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks and good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Case. My name is Pranav, and I'm a freshman in the Business Honors Program, and I'm originally from New Delhi, India. So my question to you would be, how has COVID-19 impacted technology in banking?
Yeah, hey Pranav, and thanks for being here. Welcome, and that's great that you're in the business program. So, yeah, look, I mean, COVID. I mentioned it earlier. COVID, major unpredicted. Well, maybe it was predicted by some, but in the big scheme of things, I think caught many off guard. Right? It changed everything, right? But in terms of what it meant for me and my organization and for Truist. It certainly amplified our risk profile. So if you think about, thousands of software engineers that we had to lift and shift and move to a remote working scenario, how do you protect that data? How do you protect their access to your systems? I mean, that's a real tactical change that it created for us to think about. I also mentioned earlier, it forced our technology organization to put a supply chain logistics hat on to think about, how do I get thousands of headsets to users of our technology now because they're all of a sudden working from their living rooms or their kitchen tables, right? How do you find computer parts that are sourced from a handful of places where, by the way, now the entire world's looking for the same computer parts? And how do you get them and then distribute them safely into people's homes so that you don't have to ask them to come into the office because it's not safe? We also, another example would be, and I mentioned it earlier, is we launched into how do you best support our clients and teammates with software and technical tools. And we went to work and created software that did not exist in a matter of days and weeks and launched it and put it out there for our clients to use. And a great example is we allowed our small business clients to go originate a loan for their small businesses. Apply for the loan, be granted the money through the government funding that was provided, and then service the loan on the back side of that process. And we put in technology in about 3 weeks in order to do it. And that was to support what we call the Paycheck Protection Program, which was a US government funded program designed to allow small businesses to keep making payroll, right? So, it's just been, you talk about learning agility. This year has been an amplification of it, and we're still learning. But those are hopefully some good examples to share with you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck.
Hi, Mr. Case. My name is Thon Freckleton. I'm a finance and accounting major and a management information systems minor. I'm from Cary, North Carolina, and I serve on the BHP executive board. My question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is currently an undergraduate student and wants to make it to a strong position as you currently hold? And what steps did you take to get there where you are today?
Yeah, hey, Thon, and finance and MIS that's a dangerous combination too, but that's a good one. And so that'll serve you well in your career. To get first of all, I don't think that I started out my career. In fact, I know I didn't start out my career, my academic or professional career, saying I want to be the CIO for the 6th largest bank in the United States. I just didn't. I'd say that at the earlier stages of my career, I was intentional, though, about learning everything I could about the business that I was in. And I also was intentional about contextualizing it beyond that business. So it was, as an example, I went to work for a bank that was headquartered in Charlotte many, many years ago, called First Union National Bank, which is now part of the Wells Fargo family. I did that and started to look around and say, okay, how does this department that I work in connect into other parts of the bank? How does it connect into capital markets? How does it connect into the real estate industry? How does somebody's savings account relate to what they want to do in their life, whether it's buy a home or whatever? So my point is learn, ask questions, be willing to take some risk. It's okay if you make a mistake. And I'd say contextualize everything you do. Look for the big picture. I always say, think globally and act locally. That's a good phrase to remember. And I think that over time, align that to your personal purpose and what really motivates you personally. That probably doesn't lead you to being the CIO for the 6th largest bank, but it might. And I think your own journey is your own journey. So you don't be afraid to own it and create it as you go. But those are some of those ingredients, I'd say, where you all are at your stage of your life, and especially in an undergrad program for the majority of you. Those would be some good words, I think, of encouragement.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck.
I just want to thank all of our students who sent in these questions for Scott. We do have just a little bit of time to talk about artificial intelligence, if you'd like, a few minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I won't go deep because I don't want to put you all to sleep here at the end of the call. But artificial intelligence. Maybe I'll just frame it up this way. When you think about AI or intelligent automation, you can use it different way. You can say it different ways. But AI, I always think about it as an umbrella. Right. And underneath that umbrella, there's a range of capabilities. Some are, I'd say, more fundamental and basic, and they could be applied in ways to automate processes, perhaps in an operations part of the bank, as an example, just to use banking as the example. But you could apply that in an energy business or any business. So artificial intelligence really automates a lot of processes and removes the need for human intervention. So there's efficiency there, there's effectiveness there, there's a lot of good business reasons to look at that branch of artificial intelligence. And then I think there's a spectrum, right? You get to the higher end of that spectrum of AI capabilities, and you get into machine learning and cognitive capabilities where through different modeling techniques and through the application of data modeling, the machine will have algorithms that will tell you pattern behavior and pattern recognition. And many of you probably rely on cognitive computing techniques day in and day out. You may or may not even know it. They could be on your favorite search. They could be through Alexa. They could be through, when you use Uber or whatever platform, because I know some people aren't Uber fans, but whatever platform you use, what's happening behind the scenes to allocate services you need. There are usually algorithms and some higher order and advanced analytics happening behind the scenes. So when we think about the family of AI capabilities and the technology that supports it, the exciting part for us is how can that be applied in the lives of our clients or teammates day to day to make things better for them, right? So Dr. Troyer, I'll stop there because I'll keep you definitely don't want me to get on that soapbox much longer, but AI is one of those ingredients in that digital recipe or in the toolkit that I talked about. You have to use it responsibly, and as long as you align it, I think, to your client's needs and client's expectations in the right way, it's a good application. So
Fascinating. It's really fascinating stuff.
It's an incredible science, and it's moving fast, and the whole data science umbrella, AI and others are, it's a pretty exciting time to be in that space.
I agree. I agree. So thank you. I really appreciate your time with us today. You've had some really fantastic insights and, shared lots of dimensions of your experience, both personal and professional. So thank you for that, Scott.
Yeah, and it was my pleasure. Love the questions from the students as well, and hopefully gave you all some things to think about. And happy to come back at some point.
Absolutely. So, do you have any final thoughts for us today? Anything that you didn't get to say yet that you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I mean, I applaud all of you as students, especially for what you're doing. I mean, furthering your education and insights is important for our communities and for our businesses. I think for our country as well, to be honest. So I applaud you for doing that. Maybe I would just leave you with the whole concept I didn't get a chance to talk about, which I talk about. It's called grit. GRIT, grit. There's a lot of books that have been written on it, publications out there, but it's really about perseverance at the end of the day. It's that you will have challenges, you'll have ups and downs personally and professionally, but having that notion of perseverance and grit, work ethic, there is just no substitute for it. And like I said, being willing to take some chances and have that growth mindset, those are the components that will allow you to be successful, however you define it. And the last thing, Dr. Troyer, is defining it really, to me, comes down to what's your personal purpose and aligning that to what you do every day, whether it's your family or how you make a living, your communities, et cetera. The alignment of personal purpose to what you get to do every day and how you bring that with a mindset of grit and personal growth is a really good formula, I think, to drive a successful and productive life. So
I completely agree. So thank you for sharing those insights today with our students, Scott. We really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
So a few final words for you folks. So I wanted to welcome everyone to join us next week, so a week from today, for our 2020 Belk College Alumni Awards. We have a great lineup of Alumni Award winners, and we'd love for you to hear from them. And then on Monday, November 16th, we have the third installment of our Dean's Leadership Series. So the topic for this one is managing through COVID-19, what makes family business different. So you can find more information about those events and other things going on in terms of our 50th anniversary at belkcollege.uncc.edu/50. Thank you all again for joining us, and please stay safe.